Welcome to PACKOLUTIon. In this podcast series, you'll hear the experts of the packaging industry talking about sustainability and the future of packaging. It is brought to you by Watron and hosted by one of its founders, Michaela Wachtel, and Sales Director Ton Kniepscher.
Welcome to another episode of PACKOLUTIon, the disruptive podcast brought to you by Watron. Today we have Karsten Schröder, founder and managing director of Innoform, as our guest, a company that for many years has successfully specialized in coaching around the subject of films, packaging and packaging technology in the food sector. Welcome, Karsten.
Welcome, Ton. Thanks for having me.
Karsten, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your career path?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career after having a master degree in material science, and then I started at Bischoff & Klein in Lengerich, 10 years, doing some kind of development in consumer packaging, pharmaceutical packaging, and paper packaging indeed. So I had a close look to all over the flex pack industry and the production possibilities, which are all at one place at Bischoff & Klein. Later on, I spent my time to found Innoform, and we failed twice in advance. But later on, we found out that there is a great demand on test services. So we founded together with the ex-laboratory manager of Bischoff & Klein, a small and very specialized laboratory in the garage of my friend Klaus Behringer in Oldenburg. And from that point on, we started to supply the flexpack industry with services around test service for plastic and paper packaging.
Okay. And Innoform is the name of your company. In which areas, business areas exactly, does Innoform operate?
Yeah, Innoform is specialized on flexible packaging and made out of plastic earlier days. But since 10 years more or less, we see our focus a bit more broad. So we've found out that paper and laminates are very important in the flexpack industry. And so we are offering consultancy, trainings, and of course, test service for this industry, as well for brand owners, packers, or flexible packaging producers.
What are the different areas to consider when we talk about food packaging? The first thing that comes to mind, of course, is material, adhesives, laminates. What is something to watch out for?
You know that plastic is a very well-regulated stuff for food packaging, better than paper, for instance. So we are focusing on plastic packaging, and we are looking for all ingredients. The polymer, of course, the adhesives, the inks, which is a very broad field, and the compound out of it.
In our last podcast, Ton and I, we always talk with our interview partners about sustainability. It's being discussed everywhere. Now, I would like to know how you see the packaging development in this ongoing discussion.
Oh, this is a very interesting question because there are so many views on sustainability, and from our test service experience, I would like to start with. I would say it's one of a lot of demands for flexible packaging. That's only one. So you have to guarantee easy opening, protection of the good, of the filling good, and so on and so forth. And sustainability is one additional task we have to manage and we have to figure out data for. In terms of conferences, seminars, and so on and so forth, sustainability is the most important topic in the world, I would say, not only in FlexPack. And we are working very hard with a lot of speakers and trainers to bring good content to the brand owners and the FlexPack industry themselves. So for me, sustainability it's not a nice to have anymore. It is a must from my point of view.
Yeah, I agree with that. Of course, that brings us to another topic, which is food. Food is probably the most difficult topic when it comes to packaging because of safety and allergens and the different requirements in different countries. You told us you work with data-driven decision-making. Can you describe that, and how does food fit into this?
So you know that packaging is the main thing packaging is worth using for is the protection of the filling good of food, for instance. It's much more important to protect the food than to be sustainable with the packaging material. So you have to keep in mind that you have to be sustainable over the whole process of producing food, producing packaging, and producing packed food in flexible packaging, for instance. And you know that flexible packaging normally is the most efficient way to pack food, to make it robust against, for instance, moisture or oxygen or bacteria or whatsoever. So without packaging, we couldn't feed the world.
Do you use LCAs for that, life cycle analysis?
We as Innoform do not create or use LCA analysis, but we are working together, for instance, with the IFO Institute in Germany, which are focused on very special LCAs. And they always found out that compounds, so laminates, are often much more sustainable than monomaterials. And this is a very disruptive discussion we are having at the moment. And for instance, they said that a standard pouch made out of monomaterial could be less sustainable than a carton box made out of plastic and paper.
Interesting.
So this is very interesting. And this is not only a view on the packaging material, but it's a view on the packed product and the whole supply chain. And that's why the carton box often is better than a monomaterial pouch, and mostly better than glass bottles or cans or whatsoever.
I think the next question fits really good into what we are just about to discuss. You're a German living in Spain, right?
Correct.
So you also see different countries and the packaging here and there, and we know that there are some differences. Can you use a specific example or even several examples to illustrate for us the differences in packaging of a food product in different countries? We know that sometimes in one country, food is differently packed than in a different country.
Yeah, sure. For instance, I saw a few weeks ago in a Chiringuito, in a Strand bar, I found out packed water. My daughter bought packed water, half a liter for €1.50. And you know, in Spain, normally you can go to each and every restaurant and ask for free water. And they preferred to sell the water in laminated carton, Tetra Pak. So the idea why they did it, they made a brand on it. So they said Tarifa is the nicest beach in Andalusian. So there are several things coming together. They could sell the water for free, or they give the water for free, but the people want to buy it, to take it to the beach, for instance. They earn money with it, and they wanted to make it very sustainable with this carton box. So I'm not sure that that's the best way to sell water in a restaurant, but it is like it is. So another idea is, you know, these carry bags. We had in Spain, we had several years, we have these biodegradable, bio-based material carrier bags. From this year on, we only see in the markets recycled polyethylene bags, and you have to pay for a lot of money. Earlier days, you got them for free. And these are different. In Germany, you don't have these bio-based, biodegradable carrier bags, I think. So there are a lot of differences. All is Europe, but there are so many differences into countries. And as well, for the recycling capacities, there are so huge differences. We have good capacity in Germany. We have good capacity in Spain, but Spain is much bigger than Germany. So you have to transport your rubbish, your packages through hundreds of kilometers to become recycled. And this often doesn't happen. So they burn it, for instance, or put it in a landfill, which is unusual in Germany.
In your line of work, you've probably come across a few packaging failures as well. Can you name any of them just for our listeners, without, of course, revealing brand names, of course?
You know that it's always not so easy to tell you any details, but what I can say is that a lot of packages are not leak tight. And maybe this could touch your business as well. We found out with a study together with the Austrian Institute OFI that more than 50% often are not leak tight. That was a study of the early 20th century, or 21st century, sorry. But you can see that there is a big demand of quality control and better sealing possibilities. Yeah. For instance, the MAP, the modified atmosphere packaging, they found out that after reaching the shelf life, the MHD in Germany, the shelf life, the Mindesthaltbarkeitsdatum, they found out that up to 70% do not have the exact atmosphere in the packaging. That means there were enormous leakages. And they found out that the leakages very often caused by the sealing. So directly after production, everything seems to be okay. The atmosphere is quite wide, but after 2 or 3 weeks, there is a diffusion of oxygen, carbon dioxide and nitrogen through the leakages in the seal, for instance, or to punctures, of course, as well. And this is what we try to work out in our laboratory. We have very specific equipment to, of course, do barrier tests for ready-made packs and, of course, leakage tests with several methods. And we found out that there is a big problem in the industry still.
Can you attribute this to material, or is this the machines, or is this supply chain?
All of them, okay. I must say. So I think what we found out earlier days is that the process is a problem. So you try to reduce thicknesses of sealing layers. You try to speed up machine speed, and then you have the same quality control with more packages. And what we find in our laboratory is that you create more problems that you cannot see with the same quality control system. So you have to control more and in more detail with other methods. There are so different methods to do leak tests that you have to be very careful to find out which is the right one.
Because it also has to do with fit for purpose and the shelf life expectations of the consumer. If a product moves through very fast, why have a shelf life of 2 years?
Yeah, exactly. That's what Froster did. They switched from polyethylene frozen bags to paper bags, and they said, for us, it's no problem because we sell 80% of our products are sold in 1 or 2 months. So we don't need any barrier in frozen food, and especially for these very quick selling products.
It also happens that packaging, of course, is steered or influenced by marketing. Sometimes marketing is even the sole reason that a particular packaging format exists. I think you referred to this already in the Tetra Paks with water, which is available free of charge in Spain. But do you have any more examples of that? Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, I worked earlier days for stand-up pouches, and they were invented in the 1950s. And I stopped working with this in the end of 1999. So at that stage, Bischoff & Klein was not convinced that the stand-up pouch will have a future at all. So they did not invest in new machinery, and they don't work on the market and so on and so forth. But the opposite happened. So the pouch, for instance, is booming. And why is that? It becomes much cheaper, it has a very good quality, and it has a very good price. But the most important thing for the brand is you have a very good brand appearance on the front of the pouch. So the pouch stands in the shelf and it looks very pretty and it's very handy for the consumer. So there are a lot of things of the pouch which let the pouch booming.
It's a very clear frontage, and the frontage is what the consumer sees in the shelf, correct? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's something I like to say it's the face of the brand. So the face of the brand is on top of the pouch and is very well noticed in the shelf of the retail market.
Yeah. And what sort of examples can you say where marketing has taken another role compared to what used to be the packaging? Is there any examples you have there as well, except for standard pouches?
Marketing is looking very deeply into the sustainability thing, and we warn them to do greenwashing, for instance. What we found out is that they claim this pouch, for instance, is 100% recyclable, and it isn't. No pouch is 100% recyclable. There is no pouch on the market which is. So you can't recycle the ink pigment, for instance. Correct. So it isn't 100%. So we have a very well-booked seminar. It's called Greenwashing. Yeah. And all the marketeers are looking very deeply to this topic because there are a lot of lawyers looking after it. And I think they have to be very careful. And it's not very interesting to the consumer because the consumer is concerned. Why is the other packaging not 100% recyclable? Is this a bad product, or is it only a bad packaging, or is there any difference at all? And I don't think that it's a good marketing strategy to say, hey, we are sustainable at all. It can't be the right slogan.
I have a question there. From a consumer point of view, I also read 100% recyclable. Now, I know after all the podcasts that we already did, Ton and I, that recycling doesn't always mean recycling. So do the producers mean by 100% recyclable that it is actually being recycled, or does it mean more or less it could be recycled, but most of it is actually not?
I think it could be recycled as the message, but the consumer does not understand this. If you read
Absolutely.
On a package it's 100% recyclable, you think, yeah, it's a recycled pouch, which is wrong, and it will be recycled, which is in 30, 50, 70% of the cases wrong as well. So it's really hard to do that. And we see these plastic bashing, and maybe this is one reason why we have this. As a consumer, we don't feel confident with the recycling capacities and the recycling ways of packagings at all, or windows or whatever made out of plastic. It's not only a problem of packaging, but as well for other plastics. But it's the same with paper, with cans, with aluminium, with wood. Nothing will be recycled 100%. It's impossible at the moment. And by the way, I'm not 100% sure that the mechanical recycling is the right way to focus on, because we have to make so many compromises. If you keep in mind that we have more than 190 different polyethylenes, and we are normally producing 3, 5, or 7 layer films, 50, 70 micron thin, for instance, to guarantee all the properties you do need for flexible packaging, then it doesn't make sense to recycle polyethylene and bring them back into such a high sophisticated film. It won't work. So we never ever can make a high sophisticated, for example, triple bubble film made out of mechanical recycled polyethylene, because all these 190 types will be mixed together in one type, and you can't get this performance you do need for these high sophisticated flexible packaging. It's really impossible. So we have to think about other ways, and maybe it is not so critical to burn the plastic so long as we burning fuels to move our cars or to heat our apartments. So why shouldn't we burn under controlled atmosphere the rest of the flexible packaging which we can't recycle in a proper manner? So I'm not convinced on the mechanical recycling, but we will see how it works. And there are other recycling methods on the market. I'm not an expert in recycling systems, but so far as I am informed, the chemical recycling and the mixture, the solvent-based recycling should be an option as well. And maybe this will help us to use polyethylene from flexible packaging again for flexible packaging. At the moment, it is forbidden to use recycled polyethylene, polypropylene for flexible packaging for food packaging. So we can't do that. So that's why we don't do that.
That's, of course, also we're down-gauging the product and downcycling the product to make garden benches out of it. And, of course, as you said, the thermal recycling, so incineration. This is also a process where certain incinerators need the plastics to actually reach the set temperature. Otherwise, they can't burn all the other stuff properly.
Exactly. For instance, in one of our next conferences, we are talking about the influence of FlexPack and climate change. And if you go into depth in this field, it's not easy to say it's good or bad that we use flexible packaging made out of plastic. Sometimes it should be or could be better to use a laminate with paper, and sometimes it's better to make a monomaterial. And in other cases, it's better to have a laminate with aluminium. It depends really on the packed food and of the process, all the circumstances. It's really painful that we can't bring more than 20% in Africa from the field to the fork. It's really a horror scenario. So we do need more packaging in Africa. But before we bring packaging to Africa, we have to think how we get the packaging back after usage.
Yeah, I've heard that worldwide 30% of all the food does not reach the consumer. So if you think about that and think about the carbon footprint impact that has, it's shocking.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I think it's often much more sustainable to reduce the weight of a package by, for instance, using flexible packaging, which is normally or mainly the minimum packaging in terms of packaging weight ratio to filling weight. So I think we should think, do we need really a bottle of HDPE, for instance, for shampoo made out of recycled polyethylene? Is it worth doing that? Or should it be better to use a pouch which is 10 times less heavy and couldn't be recycled as good as the polyethylene bottle made out of PEHD? But maybe it's worth using the standard pouch, but maybe not. And who will answer this? For instance, you have to do this LCA analysis with the IFO Institute, for instance. You can't say as an expert, and I'm really working 30 years for packaging now, nearly, I can't say which is the best way. We have to calculate it. We have to do it data-driven.
There's no general solution, correct? There's no general answer.
We are totally already into my next question. That's perfect. Because I wanted to ask you about the future. Since you're an expert on packaging and you have a lot of experience and knowledge, Karsten, how do you see the packaging world in 15 years? What will it look like?
I would like to answer it very personally because I'm a consumer as well, and I'm thinking about this since 1991, more or less. I think we have to rethink the whole packaging industry. I will give you another example. For instance, we have these enormous problem with the coffee-to-go cups. And these paper-based, very sustainable paper-based coffee-to-go cups are not very sustainable because they're coated with polyethylene. Both materials are very sustainable in general, but if we put them together and every German guy, for instance, using 1 cup a day, which is not really the truth, they're using 2 or 3 a day, in average, it isn't sustainable because of the quantity, and you can't recycle these cups very well. What did a startup? They said, okay, we are making another cup out of plastic, but multiple use. And this multiple use cup can be used at McDonald's, Starbucks, and every restaurant in Germany, for instance. That's the vision. And after the life cycle, that can be recycled to a new cup. That's the idea. And maybe we have a lot of examples in the consumer packaging as well we are not thinking about at the moment. I don't have an example from the consumer packaging, but I can give you an idea what I'm meaning. We had an Inno talk last week about refill pouches. And before we had this Inno talk, I was not aware of there is a negotiation between experts that there is a replace concept. It's a completely different thinking. You don't refill a product into a bottle, but you replace the bottle by a pouch with a dispenser system, for instance. So the flexible packaging, the pouch becomes a primary pack. You have a lot of advantages concerning hygienic effects, product quality. You don't have to use such high viscosity products. You can use the product like it should be the best, for instance, in the cosmetic industry for your skin. And you can use it in hospitals where for at the moment you can't use flexible pouches as a refill concept at the moment, but replace pouches could be used because, it's a complete different thinking and you avoid a lot of bottles and then it becomes sustainable, although the pouch is not 100% recyclable. But it is a monomaterial pouch. It could be recycled as the material, or the material could be recycled, but you can't make another pouch out of it. But you can use it for other applications. I don't know what. But we have to rethink really the role of packaging. Earlier days, everyone said it's a service. Packaging is a service. And I think we should come back to this idea. It is a service. It's not a product.
In my career, I used to work with the cleaning industry, the professional cleaning industry, and they had these pouches which they fitted into a dispenser. So, for example, in a hotel or also in a restaurant, you had a pouch with a cleaning agent which was put in a dispenser and then used. That, of course, was very well optimized. So I think what you say, you can actually see this for consumer products as well. And of course, that adds for the consumer convenience because the consumer of the future, let's say in 15 years, will be completely convenience focused, I think.
Exactly. And you know, these coffee machines, which made coffee out of these capsulas, why don't make this machine tea, milk, and any other drink, Coca-Cola, beer, for instance, wine? I don't know why. Why shouldn't we think about these concepts a bit more into depth? Is it too complicated for us? Or do we have problems changing our business models? We do need disruptive ideas, I guess, to really make a difference. I don't think it is the way out of this climate crisis just to recycle polyethylene pouches, for instance, or make them more leak tight. We have to think in a different way.
I think there's probably some people in a garage somewhere in Germany or in Spain or in England coming up with these sorts of ideas for the next 10 years.
I think so. I'm 100% sure that we will have a lot of ideas like this. For instance, the company called Pakiro is thinking in digital models for the Flexpack or for the printing industry and Flexpack industry as well. And there are a lot of startups like this in Europe and all over the world. So I'm 100% sure that we will see very interesting new packaging development in the near future.
We have reached the end of this episode. Karsten, is there anything you would like to add?
I just want to mention that knowledge about flexible packaging is very important to improve anything. And so I would like to invite everybody listening to this podcast to our platform, discuss with the experts about flexible packaging. As in particular, these guys who do not like flexible packaging. I would like to invite them to discuss with us how to improve this brilliant minimum packaging system, FlexPack industry.
I would agree with that. So that concludes another episode of our podcast, PACKOLUTION. Thank you, Karsten, for sharing your experiences and vision with us. Very interesting for us and hopefully for our listeners. Please stay tuned in this channel for more inspiring episodes of PACKOLUTIONs with experts in the packaging industry.